right, good afternoon, folks. This is Ferrisling with Trade with Tex. Today we're going to do another YouTube chart prep video. Basically, we are going to go over some of these stock and futures charts in preparation for the upcoming week. Keep in mind that these videos are not necessarily focused on the educational aspect like a lot of our videos. We're primarily going to focus on what to watch and how to trade them in order to kind of boost your profits for the week. Okay, so this is for day traders and swing traders, not just one or the other. All right, real quick before we get started, I did want to mention that if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure to do that. You can also click the little notification bell in the bottom right hand corner so that it notifies you every time a video is posted. Okay, but either way, we got a lot to go over here, so we're going to jump right into it. We're going to talk about the Nasdaq, a couple of large caps first, and then towards the end of the video, we'll talk about momentum movers that aren't really your average large caps or mid caps. Okay, so if you want to just play the momentum movers, you can skip to the end. If you want to actually put in the time and effort and trade some of these options or common stock plays, we're going to kick it off with that. Okay, so first things first, here is the Nasdaq chart, just the standard QQQ Nasdaq ETF. Basically, I wanted to show you this before I show you the more hectic futures chart to give you an idea of what happened this week. And as you can see, it was a pretty bullish week, which was shocking because right off the bat this week, we started off with a big pullback, right? We had a decent Monday, then a big pullback because basically political headlines influenced the market movement substantially, right? So then we rallied back on stimulus talks and we closed at the weekly high. We also closed at the highest level since this daily candlestick, which, to give you guys an idea, one of the things that we use to our advantage over the weekends and just every night for chart prep is that closing price. That closing price gives us an idea of supply and demand. So what this shows is that even though it's on lower overall volume, right, bulls are starting to take back control here. It's very clear with that closing price. Again, I know the stimulus talks are probably a whole lot of, baloney, but frankly, I don't care about the headlines. I just trade price. So price alone, if we look at Nasdaq futures, I'll give you guys my targets for this week. Now we got the crazy looking chart here, but you guys get the gist. We have closed above the resistance zone that we talked about for about 2 weeks. And again, if you're not in the Trade with Tex chat room, you missed it because we didn't actually have the time to put out a video last weekend. But basically the zone that we were focused on here was 11.561. It's a key fib, and Fibonacci retracements in this scenario, we're drawing them from the high to the low. And again, this is the daily chart, so each candle representing a day. So we take it on the daily chart high, that's the all-time high, down to the low that was on September 21st, September 22nd, and we get an idea of where the resistance is. So this was, that's poorly drawn, but you get the gist. The big key level that we talked about before, that has now broken, and the reason I'm even mentioning this key level is not for the breakout, but really that is now support. So moving forward, if there's any negative headline, if Trump gets COVID 5 more times, then that's going to be the big support that we're looking for a base off of. Okay, so significant support levels below are 11.561 and the 8 EMA on the daily chart. Okay, that's that little pink line right there. So it's here and here. All right, and then the targets for this week are going to be 11.774.25. That's the next fib. Okay, 11,800, and then 12,000 even. It's technically 12,046, but we're going to take the mental level first. Okay, so targets 1, 2, which is right above that, and then 3 is very far away. Okay, that's what we're looking for this week. All right, and it's supposed to be a lower volume week because we got Columbus Day on Monday, but the markets are still open, so these targets remain live. And just to give you an idea of why we're looking for a move up, obviously the daily chart is starting to look more promising, but if you look at the next larger time frame, which is the weekly, right, this is showing us a very clear signal to the upside. Okay, because we had this big ugly weekly candle because it had all that sell pressure, all right, and we have reclaimed that. So bottom line, as long as it stays above this level, 11.561, that blue line right there, these are the two targets, and then that's the real far one. Okay, so again, ignore the stimulus headlines, ignore all the nonsense, just focus on price. Those are the targets for this week. All right, we are bullish currently. Okay, now I wanted to knock out the large caps real quick because all of the charts look the same. And this is a big point that I wanted to raise with the Nasdaq as well before we switched over to the Amazon and Microsoft charts. Basically for the Nasdaq, we are within the 50%. So I switched it back to the daily chart just to show you, but the 50%, which is right here, and the 61.8% fib. And the way these Fibonacci retracements work is the 61.8% is a magnet, right? It's a big reversal area, but it's a magnet. So when we cross over that 50, that is a very, very high probability move, okay? So that's why I'm so optimistic about these targets hitting. Now, the second part of this is that a lot of these large caps are in a similar scenario where they've crossed over those 50% lines and they're going up to the 61.8. So I don't actually care about which ones are stronger. I'm only talking Amazon here because it has the Prime Day on Friday, so it has a good chance of being stronger. But the bottom line is your best opportunities are the ones that are crossing over the 50% fib to the 61. Okay, keep that in mind because we're going to go over that right after the Amazon chart. So basically Amazon ran up because it was the Friday before Prime Day. It's trying to price it in advance. Options are going to be pretty pricey this week, but we're using this not only as something to trade, but something to gauge the market movement, right? This led the Nasdaq on Friday. So that being said, if this thing can clear the next fib, which is the 61.8, so you can see it's a little more overextended than the other movers, but if it can clear 32.92, then we got plenty of upside here. Should be a much bigger move up to 33.81.5. Now, to be clear, that is 32.92 to the 3,300. So there's still a lot of meat on the bones there. Okay. And this was just a very simple mention that I wanted to make along with the Nasdaq. These charts look identical. Amazon has a little bit more volume and it's a little more overextended, but we are looking for this push up this week if it can break through 32.92. Last time it tried to get 32.92, it failed miserably. That was right here. Right, it tried, that was not an easy level to break, and then it ended up moving all the way back down. Okay, so that's the move that I'm looking for this week. And I want to breeze through this, so we're going to go to Microsoft. Microsoft is actually my favorite chart going into this week, and I don't know why it's not getting a lot of attention. I think because it's a more boring stock, right? It doesn't move as much as Apple or the other big names, but when it does, I mean, if you trade options, the options are so damn cheap on this that you really can get big gains even on Friday. And again, I know it was a Friday, so the options were expiring. Our calls went from 30 cents to 60 cents and then to 90 cents. So we doubled and tripled those gains right off the bat with this one because the options are so cheap. So Microsoft, cheaper options, much more viable candidate because it has more upside here. Basically, it reclaimed the 50% fib, just like what we were talking about. So as long as it stays above 214.56, it is signaling a move to not only the fib overhead, but we got one more level just in front of that we cannot discount. It's the high of this candle. Okay, this guy right here. So Microsoft signaling a move up to 218.36. And then 218.87, which is going to be a big resistance level. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, if you haven't traded this in the past, make sure that you stick to your plan. Do not just size out partially and then leave the rest on the table. I would 100% take profits at that area, and then you can always get back in if it breaks. Because Microsoft, since it's such a big company and there's so much volume flowing through it, it's heavily traded by algorithms, right? So these key levels, while they might not look like they're very big resistance, it will get knocked down below that by the end of the day. No question, right? You can even see on this daily chart, there were a couple of times where it tried to break key resistance, and by the end of the day, it closed below it almost every single time. Okay, so those are the two targets overhead, and then after that, it's blue skies, right? It's nothing until 525. Sorry, not 525, 225. That would be insane. Okay. But either way, those are the targets for Microsoft this week. Whether you swing trade or day trade, I think that's some pretty realistic upside. Should hit within 1 to 2 days. Okay. And I don't care about the TikTok headlines for Microsoft, just follow price. All right, now into the more exciting stuff. So right at the 10-minute mark, we're gonna start going into two momentum movers. One, you guys probably don't care so much about, but we've made a killing on it over the past couple years. And the other one is a pot stock. So let's actually start off with the pot stock here. Now, one of the things that you should be doing on a daily and weekly basis is reevaluating what industries and what groups are hot. It's very clear that going into this week, tech stocks are looking solid. But for those of you that don't trade options and you don't want to trade Amazon at $1 million per share, you have to focus on groups with a little more momentum and a little bit more risk. One of the ones that's popping up as of last week, pot stocks, right? If you guys missed it, the vice presidential debate had Kamala Harris and VP Pence talking about different industries, right? One of the industries that got a lot of love was pot stocks because Harris said that her and Biden were going to legalize them. Whether or not that happens, right? They're saying they're going to decriminalize pot on a federal level. Whether or not that happens, this is still a catalyst. Whether or not you care about politics, I don't care about politics. This is still a catalyst for pot stocks to move up over the next 3 weeks because that's when the election is. So one of our go-to ones is CGC. Just off the top of my head, there's Tilray, ACB, APHA, CRON. There are a lot. But this is one of the go-to ones because you can use a large size on it, right? It trades pretty high volume, 12 million shares on Friday alone. If you look at the daily and the weekly chart, it's very clear as to what's holding it down. So this is the daily, right? Look at the 52-week high and draw that trend line through the other high. And you can see exactly why it didn't follow through on Friday, which, mind you, Friday was day 2. And on day 2, we usually get really good follow through. Day 1 and day 2, awesome for day trading. But it didn't. And the reason why is that trend line. You might think that's a bad thing. That's a really good thing because now we've identified what's the issue with this chart. What is preventing people from buying more? So all you got to do, and you have to do it yourself, right? You can't just do it along with me here because you need to see that real time. Draw the trend line through that resistance and then set the alert just above it. So that's in about the 1830s. But basically if CGC moves up 2% and holds that move, right? So if it moves up about 30 cents and it holds that move, we're getting a very clean signal to 1948. I think it's 1948. 1949. Whew, huge difference. Okay. So nice and simple for CGC. You can see I already have the alert set. If you're using Thinkorswim or eTrade Pro or one of the main platforms that a lot of retail traders use, just right click the chart and hit create alert. Okay. And you can set the price alert if it breaks above that. That's what you have to do physically. If you're unfamiliar with how to set price alerts, just Google it or reach out to the help desk for whatever platform you're using. Okay. CGC, I don't really intend to buy it off support. There is a lot of support trailing it now, which is another big highlight, if you guys haven't noticed. The 200-day and the 50-day are right below. But bottom line is, break of 1830, roughly. Break and hold, that's the key part here. So you have to make sure that it stays above it. We get a pop of $1.20, which is a lot of upside. Okay, so this week I'm going to be looking at pot stocks, tech, and then semiconductors with a big focus on these two. Okay, my go-to choice for pot stocks is going to be CGC. Go-to place for tech stocks are going to be Amazon and Microsoft. Okay, Apple also has an event this week, so you can focus on that too. I'll probably take a look at it Monday, see how it behaves, but for now I'm going to stick to my list. Okay, so I'm moving into these. Last week we looked at electric vehicles and solar stocks. Solars are getting really overbought, so this is what I'm going to focus on. Okay, and the last ticker is one of our go-tos. I said you guys probably won't care for this too much because it's not that sexy, it's not that hot. But natural gas is trying to break out again. Basically, we took this short on natural gas and we exited right there because it had the moving average support. Okay, these are the natural gas futures, but you can trade UNG for common stock. Really good for swing trading, by the way. Really good because natural gas is incredibly technically driven. It goes key level to key level over and over and over. So right now, it has curled back up to that high at 2.823. It's got increasing volume, and believe it or not, I was really, really hoping for a short here. I wanted to nail it on the bearish move, but that increasing volume means that there is definitely some buying pressure here because it's closing higher. So this is the highest close for natural gas in a very long time. That means it has the chance of breaking out. Set the alert over 2.823, and you have to set it for the futures, right? /NG. Have to set it for the futures, but if it breaks through that, then it's signaling an immediate move to 2.905, which, as you guys know, for natural gas, that's not close. That's a lot of meat right there, okay? And there's nothing until that. There's no other resistance. So natural gas, a lot of upside, just needs to break out, set the alert, and again, you can trade UNG off of it. Okay, that's the common stock. I'll show you what that looks like. It's right here. All right, so it'll look like this. All right, and UNG has options. Okay, so just to kind of recap that, Nasdaq, we have 3 overhead targets for this week, 2 of which are somewhat close. Amazon will be using that to gauge the Nasdaq movement because they got Prime Day on Friday, which, I mean, this should be fun to trade on Friday too, but I think it'll be a buy the rumor, sell the news. Microsoft, best looking chart going into next week, and then CGC for pot and natural gas for a potential swing trade. Okay. Nice and short list. We're already watching the Nasdaq. We're already watching natural gas. So that's 3 tickers. My only word of advice for you guys going into this week, keep it simple and don't overtrade. That's what made us some serious coin last week. And final note here, if you did like the video, obviously like and subscribe. But on top of that, join us and chat for a free week. We've had a lot of people from YouTube come and join us, and they learn a ton because typically if you're watching this video, you want to learn, right? They learn a ton and then they apply that in profit as well. Okay, so come try it out for a free week, tradewithtex.com. All right, but either way, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will talk to you guys bright and early Monday morning. All right, let's make some money together. All right, take it easy, folks.